Ekrem İmamoğlu, a name synonymous with hope and change for many in Turkey, has had a meteoric rise in Turkish politics. Born in 1970 in Trabzon, İmamoğlu's journey began far from the bustling political scene of Istanbul. His early career was in business, a world he understood well. But destiny, it seemed, had other plans. In 2014, İmamoğlu, a member of the Republican People's Party (CHP), took the reins of Istanbul's Beylikdüzü district as mayor. His tenure was marked by a dedication to social democracy and a focus on improving the lives of his constituents. This resonated with the people, and in 2019, he set his sights on a bigger stage, the mayoralty of Istanbul. The 2019 Istanbul mayoral election was more than just a local election, it was a referendum on the ruling party's hold on power. İmamoğlu, with his charisma and promise of change, presented a formidable challenge to President Erdogan's Justice and Development Party, AKP. The election was closely contested, with İmamoğlu emerging victorious. His victory was short-lived. The AKP, unable to accept defeat in a city they had held for 25 years, challenged the results. The election board annulled the results, a move that sent shockwaves through Turkey and drew international condemnation. Undeterred, İmamoğlu stood his ground. He campaigned tirelessly, his message resonating even louder amidst attempts to silence him. In the rerun election, İmamoğlu's victory was even more resounding. He won by a larger margin, cementing his place as a leading figure in Turkish politics and a potent threat to President Erdogan's grip on power. The date, March 19, 2025, will be etched in the memories of many Turks as a dark day for democracy. On this day, Ekrem İmamoğlu, the popular mayor of Istanbul, was arrested. The charges leveled against him were serious: corruption, aiding terrorism, and insulting election officials. The Turkish government claimed that İmamoğlu had ties to terrorist organizations and had engaged in corrupt practices. The timing of the arrest, just months before the 2028 presidential election, raised eyebrows both domestically and internationally. İmamoğlu, widely seen as a potential challenger to President Erdogan, had been a vocal critic of the government's policies. His arrest was seen by many as a blatant attempt to silence a political opponent and stifle dissent. The charges of aiding terrorism stemmed from alleged contacts with pro-Kurdish groups during his mayoral campaigns. However, no concrete evidence was presented to support these claims. The corruption charges, too, were seen as politically motivated, lacking any substantial basis. The charge of insulting election officials stemmed from a speech İmamoğlu gave in 2019, where he referred to those who annulled his initial election victory as fools. While his choice of words may have been undiplomatic, they were hardly grounds for arrest in a country that claims to uphold freedom of speech. The arrest sent shockwaves through Turkey, with many seeing it as a clear sign of the country's backsliding on democracy under President Erdogan's rule. It was a stark reminder of the shrinking space for dissent and the increasing authoritarian tendencies of the Turkish government. The arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu ignited a firestorm of protests across Turkey. From the bustling streets of Istanbul to the capital city of Ankara, tens of thousands poured out onto the streets, demanding his release and denouncing the government's actions. The protests were not limited to Istanbul. They spread like wildfire to other major cities like Izmir and İmamoğlu's hometown of Trabzon, a testament to his widespread appeal. The Turkish government responded to the protests with a heavy hand. Police used tear gas, water cannons, and pepper spray to disperse the crowds. Over 1,100 people were detained, including journalists covering the events. The crackdown on the press drew further condemnation, highlighting the government's intolerance for any form of criticism. İmamoğlu's wife, Dilek Kaya İmamoğlu, emerged as a powerful voice during this tumultuous period. She called for peaceful protests and urged the international community to stand with Turkey in defense of democracy. Her courage and resilience in the face of adversity resonated with many, making her a symbol of hope and resistance. The international community was quick to condemn İmamoğlu's arrest. The European Union, long concerned about the erosion of democracy in Turkey, urged the government to respect human rights and the rule of law. European leaders, including those from France, Germany, and Greece, called for İmamoğlu's immediate release and denounced the arrest as politically motivated. The United States, while expressing concern over the situation, stopped short of condemning the arrest outright, calling it an internal legal matter. However, the US did emphasize the importance of protecting freedoms and human rights, a veiled criticism of the Turkish government's actions. The arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu marks a pivotal moment in Turkey's history. It has exposed the fragility of the country's democracy and the lengths to which President Erdogan's government is willing to go to silence opposition. The charges against İmamoğlu, widely seen as trumped up, have done little to quell the unrest. If anything, they have further galvanized the opposition, uniting them against a common threat. The protests that erupted following İmamoğlu's arrest were a clear indication of the deep divisions within Turkish society. While Erdogan remains a popular figure among his base, his grip on power appears to be waning. The economic woes plaguing the country, coupled with his increasingly authoritarian tendencies, have alienated many. İmamoğlu, even from prison, remains a potent symbol of hope for those yearning for change. His message of unity, democracy, and a brighter future for Turkey continues to resonate, particularly among the youth who see him as a leader who can usher in a new era. The international community has a crucial role to play in this critical juncture. While statements of concern are important, they are not enough. Concrete actions, such as targeted sanctions against those responsible for undermining democracy in Turkey, are needed to send a clear message that such actions will not be tolerated. The future of Turkish democracy hangs in the balance. The outcome of İmamoğlu's case will have far-reaching consequences, not just for Turkey, but for the region as a whole. It remains to be seen whether Turkey will return to the path of democracy or descend further into authoritarianism. One thing is certain: the world is watching, and the stakes have never been higher.